As a small child, some things terrify and fascinate you in equal measures. This was certainly true of the huge, derelict barn in the field at the bottom of our garden. The estate I grew up on was semi-rural, meaning that although surrounded by houses in the nearby town, at the rear of the line of 1960s semi-detached houses in our road, there was still, when I was a child at least, a working dairy farm. Greenfield's farm sort of spilled out over and onto the lane that passed it by. This was also true of the associated smells and sounds, which did so with overpowering vigour. Pedalling down the lane, you felt as though you'd joined the cowshit slalom, and this was all in turn being chased by Oscar, the farm dog, growling, snarling, and if you were stupid enough to slow down enough, biting away at your trouser leg. Rowdy pecking geese further along by the old duck pond were the next hazard in the road, not to mention Mr. M's, the farmer, careering around on his yard scraper tractor. Early mornings began with the loud crowing of the cockerel, who seemed like he was only ever about 6 feet away from my pillar, the air brakes of the milk tanker lorry, and if it was windy, the rattling of loose corrugated iron on the remains of the barn's roof. In summer, the field between our garden and the barn was stacked high with plastic-covered silage bales, all emanating a sweet, sickly smell as the summer heat rose. My parents rightly forbade me from climbing on the bales, or even exploring the field and barn. There was so much farm scrapping amongst the nettles that a spike in the foot and subsequent dose of tetanus was almost inevitable. Despite these warnings, the creaking behemoth held me in its grasp mentally, and I would have dreams and nightmares of its dark interior and the snarling dog that patrolled it. All of this came to an abrupt close when in the mid-80s the farm was sold off. The once formidable black barn, cowsheds, and 19th century farmhouse were all demolished, and a row of new red brick houses erected in place of the sprawling farmyard, its morning cock crowing sadly no more. Upon completion, the final house in the line was inhabited by a family who had come down from up north just to make a new life. Christian, whom everyone knew as Harry, soon became part of the circle of lads who hung around on the estate. 4 years older than me, he was by then coming 16. We all loved old motorbikes, and both Chester and I had ancient relics we would sputter around the fields on, but no one in our peer group actually had a proper bike to ride on legally on the road. 4th of August 1988. A cloudy Thursday lunchtime saw a group of us stood gawping on Harry's parents' crisp newly laid driveway, peering into the garage as his stepfather wheeled out the mighty, bright red F-Reg beast that was a brand new Honda MT5. Skeller's motorcycles Worcester on the number plates and shiny owl plates fitted to the front and rear. In awe, several sets of beady eyes watched as Harry kick-started the shiny machine and tottered up and down the estate. After a few weeks, his confidence had grown to a point where I could blag him to tow me on my Rally Keep racing bike down to the local chip shop and back up after a few games of Altered Beast on the shop's arcade machine. Blistering acceleration was hardly applicable, but I simply held on to the moped's rear light cluster with one hand and steered my push bike with the other. The chip shop and video shop were quite a gathering point for teenagers in provincial towns back in the 1980s. It doesn't matter where you were from. It was always the same. Come early evening, a small crew would have formed in and around these establishments, playing fruit machines, flicking mushy peas around at each other, and blagging free advertising posters, and generally talking shite. If you turned up at your non-local chippy or video shop whilst out shopping with your mum, then watch out. Interlopers playing the bandits were eyed with suspicion, and God forbid if you won the £4 jackpot out of it, you might even get bloody lynched. It's hard now to convey or extol the video shop's vital role in our young lives to anyone who wasn't part of that era. A visit to the cinema from our local estate was a 25-mile round trip by bus, far further than any of us were allowed to go or could afford to venture. We were lucky, really, to even have a video shop in our town. Many of my countryside dwelling pals had to be grateful for the once-a-week 15-minute visit of a bloke in a van who called round iron tapes to the carrot crunchers from the rear of his old Astromax. With Harry's arrival, the last months of the 1980s, and on into the start of the 90s, marked a leap forward in the consumption of horror, war and sexually deviant videos on my behalf. This aided by Harry's looking old enough to hire 18 rated tapes and his mother, through ill health, largely being absent for long periods of time. When not all playing Last Ninja on his Commodore 64 computer, we would be 5 or 6 handed lounging around in Harry's front room, watching films on evenings and weekends. There were, of course, asides that lured us away from watching the likes of Ghoulies Go to College, No Retreat, No Surrender, or Adventures of a Taxi Driver. One of which being when Michael, a lad with exceptionally greasy black hair, like he had dumped it in the chip pan before venturing out, got a brand new Honda H100A and wanted to attempt learning to do wheelies on it. This was box office on its own. We assembled at the bottom of the old road into town. He started the bike up, and under Harry's strict instructions, started revving it flat out, popped it into gear, and just dumped the clutch. The resultant flip over onto his back with the revving on top was pretty impressive, and if not spectacular. A lad known as Molar could get served beer at one of the village pubs a few miles away. So an order was written down and a few notes handed over, plus a bit extra for petrol. Off he would go on his Suzuki R50 moped, but the thing was so bloody slow that us blokes were likely to die of thirst before he ever returned. Our mate Chris worked Thursday and Saturday evenings in the Italian restaurant down in the town. If no one had any money for films, or we were all just a bit bored, then the whole crew would pop down and start harassing him through the kitchen window in the back street while he was busy washing up or taking the rubbish out. Chris wanted a motorbike, but his father resolutely said no to it, and this led to him buying a battered Yamaha DT100 and keeping it at his mate's house. He got away with it for months until, like a scene from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, he pulled up at a junction, a car pulled up alongside, his father looked across, caught him looking back at him, they recognised each other, and then subsequently the little Yamaha was sold. Someone got given the rattling remains of a Suzuki B120. It had no lights, no mudguards, and not even an exhaust pipe, but amazingly still ran. Becoming a bit of a pool bike around the estate, you could often hear it in the early hours being dogged up and down the lanes behind the estate or across various fields. The thing just refused to die, and by the mid-90s, while I was away working then, the younger generation of teens were still racing around on the bloody thing in the by then derelict school site. Times change, people move away, and years turn into decades. The last I heard of old Harry was in the paper regarding a regrettable incident of suspected arson. He was apparently living rough at the time and at a real low point. Recounting this lot over the last few days has had me thinking again of the black, childhood haunting barn that stands now only in my dreams. Rowdy pecking geese further along by the old duck pond. Hello there. Thank you for watching my video, and sorry about that bloody sheep. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more, please like, share and subscribe. It really is helpful and I do appreciate it. All the best to you and take care.